Episode 5, Sirens. I have a video about Sirens, so I don't want to rehash too much of what's on that video. But suffice it to say that I think sirens are some of the most fun sounds to make. And if you're a person who wants to get into making their own sounds in their music, experimenting with synthesizers, that kind of stuff, I think sirens are a great place to start. Because with something like a kick drum or a snare or a bass, there's a lot of pre-established aesthetic considerations that require a lot of production knowledge. So like with a kick, for example, you need to know how to compress your audio really well. You need to engage some clippers. You're looking for something very specific usually. But a siren is one of those things where you can pick a synthesizer and just go wild with it. Especially considering that sirens don't carry musical information like a lead synth does or a bass synth does. You can really let your imagination run wild. I have my instrument and audio effect cards again, and this time we have the ultimate deck for our inspiration. Ooh, a hair. Similar to the Cabinetarium cards I used last time, every single one of these cards has a unique illustration on it. Here's just a few of them. Some of them are more straightforwardly representational, some of them are more abstract. Here are the jokers as well, which I won't be including in the deck this time, because last time I pulled a joker and I want to, get one of the value cards in there. I don't think this is the case. Well, this is the case. This is the card case, but I don't think it's the case that every card is a different artist. I think they're all the same. It says designed by Stranger and Stranger. I don't know if that's an agency that has lots of different artists, but I kind of get the impression that they're all made by different people. So that's going to be our source of inspiration for this. I'll also be working to a timer this time, just because in the last video time kind of got away from me and I don't want that to happen again. First things first, the instrument cards. We have Collision, and for our audio effect, let's go with Echo. Okay, I think those are both solid options. And then the star of the show, the ultimate deck. Here's a good opportunity to show off my card handling skills as I drop some. Give it one of these. Maybe one of these. Nice. Okay. Card out of the middle, and we have the 3 of diamonds. Let me try to get this in the light a little bit more. And we have this dancing clown, it looks like. You can see he's got the 3 diamonds as buttons on his jacket, and he has a bag of something mysterious. So, clowns bring to mind circus music. Also have those ridiculous, like, honk honk kind of horns. I think more than anything, though, what I'm getting from this is let's not be afraid to get really silly with it. So Collision, Echo, and we gotta be silly. Into the DAW. Starting our timer, and let's go. All right, let's get Collision, and I'll grab a blank Echo this time rather than the randomized parameter one I was using in the last couple videos. Let's go with a string for now. And I want to use the noise parameters. Make sure our sustain is all the way up. Make our MIDI clip nice and long, so our final sound gives us a lot to work with. Also going to try to make sure that it's nice and loud. Because it was kind of quiet in some of the other videos. So I think the first step is obviously to map the LFO to the pitch. And in Resonator 2, let's use a tube maybe. Make sure we turn it on, that'll help. And then also map this to the pitch. Make sure they're at different rates. Okay, I think we already have something decent. I might make the resonators parallel rather than in series. I'll change the wave shape here to maybe a triangle, and then this one will be, let's do like a ramp up. I'm kind of bothered by this angle. Actually, you know what I might do? Let's get an LFO. I'm gonna map the rate to this LFO. I don't need to go that crazy. Okay, I'll start experimenting with some of the parameters of these individual resonators. Yeah, this inharmonic parameter has a lot of potential. Maybe I'll even map that to the same LFO. Nice. Let's get an EQ8. I just want to make sure that we're not getting a lot of that low end. And now echo. I think we also have some potential here with modulating the delay time to get some wackiness. Let's go to milliseconds. Yeah, modulation. Let's do like a ramp up, or maybe even a random. Let's do a random. Set the phase to 0. We want the delay time. Let's do that 100. Yeah, maybe 4 hertz. I think this is qualifying as silly, in the spirit of being silly. Let's get a random LFO going, and let's map. Yes! So now it's constantly changing the shape of the LFO in echo. I want to get some wobble in there. Wobble is silly. I think doing a ping pong delay is also silly. I do, however, want to scoop out a lot of that low end. A third LFO? Map the dry wet? Why not? Actually, I changed my mind. No LFO on the dry wet, but I do want 100% dry wet. I want to put it in a rack, create a dry chain, use good old auto pan, and we'll just modulate the volume. Can I make this? Yeah, there we go. And I also want to put like a chorus or something on there. Actually, you know what? One more auto pan. I can't help myself with these auto pans. And just get some panning motion. I'm actually thinking that I want some of these LFOs to be a little faster. Okay, that's pretty silly. Let's do some crazy distortion stuff. And I'm going to experiment with transposing some of these around. You know what else is a silly effect? Is shifter, because we can create, I'll do it before the distortion, we can create a shepherd filter just by setting it to frequency mode, turning up the fine just a bit, usually like 2 or 3 hertz. And I'll even modulate the detune amount just a little bit. Another shifter, this time set to the ring mod setting. And then let's use random with the phase set to 0. EQ8, scooping out a lot of those lows. It's always important to remember that whenever you distort something, you add higher frequencies, but you also add lower frequencies. So if that's going to clutter your mix or whatever, you should scoop those out. And I'm actually going to go back on something I did earlier, and I'm going to make these pitch modulations a bit slower. Okay, I think we just about have it. Plus, I only have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to use my CTZ rack. I really should make a video about this rack. But suffice it to say, right now, you should look up the clip to 0 method. I forget who I learned it from, but I'll put their name on screen. And here's our final sound. And with a minute to spare. Okay, that last sound actually turned out a lot more busy and chaotic than I meant it to, but we got another sound to make. Instrument coming at you. Sampler. And audio effect. Let's go with Redux. I think I also got Redux in the Risers video. I'm going to see if I can apply it in a new way. Maybe in a way that's a bit more subtle. And back to the ultimate deck. I'll remove the 3 of diamonds this time. More showing off. Let's go with... I can't even read that. Queen of Clubs. This one is very detailed. Lots of flowers, lots of foliage, a lot of pinks and greens and purples. But the thing that is standing out to me is the bird. I'm also noticing the script on that cue is quite flowy. It's that kind of Spencerian script calligraphy style. It's funny because I got Redux, which is a very digital sound, and then I have this card, which is very naturalistic and flowy, so I feel like there's almost a contradiction between these two things. But I think that contradiction could actually be what makes this sound interesting. So we want this interplay between things that flow and have curves and things that are crushed and angular. I think I have some ideas. Let's hop in the DAW. And 3, 2, 1. So first things first, sampler and Redux. I'll deactivate the Redux for now. In previous sounds, I had, made a sound with a synth and then resampled it into sampler. But this time I want to go with a sampler because that stays more true to the identity of the sampler, I think. So I'll go into my recorded sounds, and I want something that has that kind of curviness or that flowiness. I do have these like bottle blows, which is just me blowing over the top of a bottle, which we can make curve around. There's also, okay, I actually kind of like this sound. So this is a recording, I don't want to explain too much, but this is an old Foley trick where you dangle a slinky and hold it up to the mic and then tap it, and you get these kind of like almost laser type sounds, these kind of like pew, pew. Might be hard to hear. You can hear those kind of pew, pew, pew kind of sounds. I think part of the reason I want to include this is because it has the impression of like rustling leaves. Okay, I'm talking a lot. I need to actually make the sound. Put it on sustain mode. I think I'll kind of loop like an interesting section of it. A big crossfade. Yeah, you can really hear it in like this section. And I'm also going to use this built-in oscillator. Maybe I'll do it at like a really low pitch. Actually, okay, I got an idea. I'm going to take the scale to 0, which will make sure that the sample doesn't repitch as I change the MIDI note. Then I'm going to take this note down an octave. Okay. So maybe if I take this MIDI note down a lot. Okay, yeah. It's actually more or less acting as an LFO now. So I suppose I could have just done that. Make sure it's nice and loud. High pass it. Actually, maybe I'll band pass it and then use an LFO to modulate the filter. Okay, that's something. We said we want something flowy, so I think I'll stick to a sine wave. But I also want to like push the resonance a bit more, because that really helps with the like pitchiness of the sound, like as if there's an oscillator being bent around, but you still get that texture of the slinky sound. And then I'll use another LFO at a very slow rate to modulate the rate of LFO 1. It just makes that motion a little bit more irregular. As always, manage my low end. Okay, so I mentioned kind of the interplay between things that are flowy and things that are digital. So I think what I'll do is grab a phaser, and then I'll create one of those like crossfade racks like this. Map the chain selector to a macro, and then maybe get an LFO. Map that to the chain selector macro. Well, actually, let me mess with the parameters of each of those effects first. Okay, that certainly has a flowiness to it. And then on the redux and high pass, the stuff coming out of the redux, because it's adding a lot of low end. That's sounding nice. Again, map the LFO to the chain selector. This time I'm going to use the stray shape, which moves it around kind of semi-randomly. I think a delay could also be nice here too. This time I'll use the kind of standard delay. And I think I'll do another LFO. This one quite slow, and I'll do kind of a similar thing where I'm messing with the time parameter, but I want it to happen really slowly. Yeah, maybe I'll put that before the phaser / redux thing. You know, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm actually going to layer this with a rack I've made in the past specifically for Sirens. I'm gonna try to be fair by letting this sound kind of sit in the background. Add it here, and you can see, I'll solo it just so you can hear what it sounds like. Ooh, okay, wait, no. I'm justifying this choice retrospectively now, because this, to me, kind of sounds like a tweeting bird. And there was a bird on the card. It's all coming together. I think what I'll do, actually, is get an EQ8. I'll isolate those higher frequencies. I think what I'll do is I'll grab a filter, high pass this. So we're isolating those kind of higher pitched tweets. And then on the sampler, kind of scoop out stuff in that frequency range to make room for that kind of tweeting siren sound. And because I love my panning, I'll go to panorama. Oh my god, I'm almost out of time. And now that sampler patch is creating a lot more stereo information. Actually, no, I think I want to do the opposite. I think I want the tweeting bird to pan around, because in the picture there was a bird next to the plant. The plant doesn't move, the bird does. I'm running out of time, I gotta move. Okay, and my good old CTZ rack. Okay, I have one more idea. I want to get a filter towards the end of this chain. I want to make it a bandpass filter. I want to modulate it with a sample and hold type deal. Maybe take the resonance up. Just to get a little bit more of that angular texture in there. I was talking about, like the interplay between things that are kind of jittery and angular and things that are kind of more flowy and natural. But I'll smooth it out just a little bit. Okay. Now I'm just gonna compress it a bit. The smallest amount of clipping. Clip it to 0. Okay, that's it. With 10 seconds left. So here's the final sound. This one kind of turned out less like a siren and more just kind of like a noise texture, which is fine. We can still call it a siren. There's literally no rules. Okay, and that is it for the Sirens. I don't really know what I'm gonna do for the next one. I have one more deck of cards I can pull from, at which point I'll have to start recycling decks. But I might try some other kind of prompt generating thing. I don't know, I'll have to give it some thought. I really encourage people to start making Sirens. There's an interesting video by the MIT Game Lab, I think. I'll put it on screen, about the history of the dub siren, and then one of the people there is making a dub siren from scratch with like analog circuits and stuff. It's really cool. So yeah, Sirens, they're good.